Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today? My name is Sean. I'm a researcher programmer here at the Ontario Science Centre. And at the Ontario Science Centre, we are always excited to put on these great events for you to come and get up close and personal, especially with astronauts, like we're going to see Jeremy Hansen very, very soon, and get to learn a lot about the upcoming mission to the moon. So it's going to be very, very exciting. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that the Ontario Science Centre sits on traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, such as the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Acknowledging the relationship to the land is an ancient practice, and today, as we celebrate the future achievement of travel to the moon and beyond, we still look back at our Earth, our home, and our relationship with nature. We express our gratitude for this opportunity to be here, and we thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land since time immemorial. Caring for our land and all people starts with respecting and connecting with our environment and supporting this action to affirm this as well. At this time, I would like to introduce one of our board members at the Ontario Science Centre. She's also a University of Toronto engineering graduate who's passionate about building and supporting the hopes and dreams and innovation of children and youth. Please join me in welcoming Janice Field.
Thanks so much, Sean, for a warm welcome to this fantastic audience. I'm so glad you're here today at the Ontario Science Centre, where I'm clearly proud to be a board member. We have been celebrating space exploration here for over 50 years. So for some of you, it may have been seeing the moon rock. For some of you, you may have met one of the astronauts like Roberta Bondar. Or else you might have even designed your own mission patch at our makerspace. Some of you may be old enough to remember the Apollo era. We've had a long, wonderful history with the Canadian Space Agency to inspire the next generation of dreamers and doers. I hope you're going to be inspired, be curious, and ask a lot of great questions to Jeremy and when you go home, because you are part of the future. You are part of experiencing the Artemis journey. We're all here together at the Science Centre to look at what the next wave of space exploration is. And so it is my great honor to have the opportunity to introduce to you the Artemis mission specialist, Jeremy Hansen, and I hope you'll give a warm, loud welcome to an astronaut.
Thank you. Appreciate it, James. Wow. Oh, you folks are too kind. Thank you. I appreciate the warm welcome. Just great to be back in Canada for me, living in Houston, Texas. Lovely to be with you today in a place where I was influenced as an early child to pursue science and innovation, technology. So it's just really cool for me to be back here, and I love the warm welcome. So thank you for having me here today. Obviously, I've got a lot going on in my world right now. The four of us were assigned to the Artemis II mission back in April. This crew and I have been very busy getting ready to go, but we've also been taking time out to share the inspiration of Artemis with our fellow Earthlings here. So on this crew up front is Reed Wiseman. Beside him is Christina Cook, and then Victor Glover in the back. And the three of us, in just over a year, will be blasting off out of Florida to journey around the moon. And it's very exciting time for us. But one thing you're going to see today in the few words that I share before we take some questions is it takes a huge team of people to do something as big and bold as going back to the moon. And that's very cool. So all of us are working hard together. I just want to kind of step back and, when I reflect on how I ended up here and how Canada ended up in this place where we've been invited as the second country in the world to send a human into deep space, I look at inspiration as a big aspect of that. And one of the things that inspired me as a child was the Apollo program. even though it happened before I was born, I came across this photo in Encyclopedia A under Neil Armstrong. Now, encyclopedias were these books we used to have. So before we had the internet, we used to have to go to books to get all that information, and it was categorized by letter. And so you had a book that was all the cool A stuff, all the cool A science. And I used to go in Encyclopedia A, I had them at home, I was really lucky, to look at airplanes, because I loved airplanes. But one day, I mistakenly flipped to Armstrong, and I saw this image, and I thought, what? Humans went to the moon? That's crazy. And so from that moment on, I kind of changed my perspective. I thought, I would like to go to the moon. I would like to be a space explorer. So I changed my treehouse into a spaceship. I started checking out books from the library on space, started trying to learn more about it. And I did one other thing that's really, really important. Now I knew what I wanted, but I needed to tell other people what I wanted to do, because you don't do anything of significance in your life alone. You need a team of people to support you. I told my parents, I told teachers, I told other people that I thought might help me. And when I look back at my life, that is the most important thing I did. I had an objective, and I told people about it. And I'll come back to this again at the end, because this is the biggest takeaway I want all of you, especially the young folks in here. I want you to set goals in your life. They don't have to be career goals. You don't have to want to be an astronaut, but just know what you want. Maybe you have a goal for 2 months from now or a year from now. Set goals, share them with other people, and you will be amazed at the things that you can accomplish. For me, I had decided I wanted to fly, so my dad told me about the Air Cadet program. I joined Air Cadets, an amazing youth program that made an enormous impact on my life, taught me self-confidence, leadership, and eventually it taught me to fly, prepared me to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. I have to tell you, I was a very shy kid. Like, if old Jeremy could see this today, he wouldn't understand that I could stand up here and talk in front of all of you people. That scared me to death when I was young. And so Air Cadets really pushed me through those boundaries. It challenged me. It made me do things that I was a bit scared to do, but I did them anyway because I had a goal. And that is how I developed myself and had the skills to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. Became a fighter pilot, and when the Canadian Space Agency said they were looking for new astronauts in 2008, I applied. I didn't think I would get it. And now that I've kind of seen astronaut selection from both sides, my own selection, and then being on the board that hired Jenny and Josh, who I'll introduce to you in a moment, I know it takes a lot of luck to get this job as well. So I didn't think I would actually get the job, but I threw my name in anyway. And here I am today on the cusp of traveling to the moon, which is pretty crazy. So this is Canada's current astronaut corps. So you've met me now. That's David St. Jacques on the right. So David and I were selected. He was in that previous photo. I forgot to mention it. So we joined in 2009 together, moved down to Houston, Texas, trained down there. David flew to the space station in 2018, 2019. 6 months aboard the station, an incredibly successful mission. And then in 2017, we hired Jenny and Josh, and they're working with us down in Houston, Texas at the Johnson Space Center, and getting ready for their missions of the future. So I just love to point out what's going on right now in space. So cool. Like, while we're chatting here, 7 human beings are orbiting our planet on the International Space Station. They're traveling 28,000 kilometers an hour at 400 kilometers above the surface. They go, in the time that we're here today, that you're in those seats, they'll go around the world one time in an hour and a half. We'll let you go before that. But close to the time you'll be in these seats, an hour and a half. And they'll see one time around the entire planet. Imagine that extraordinary experience. How many of you would like to someday go to space and see the planet from space? Maybe do one lap? Yeah. Awesome. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been to space yet, but I'm so excited to just look out the window and see our planet and all of its beauty. Space station's enormous. It's the size of a football field, and its whole purpose is to learn. We built the station to help us learn. It is a laboratory in space. It is our school in space. Now, how did Canada get involved? Well, if you look at the back of your $5 bill, you'll see Canadarm2 on your $5 bill. And they also see this 2-armed robot called Dexter. And so this is some very innovative robotics, space robotics. We've been doing this stuff for over 20 years now. But we use Dexter to do things that a human would do. So instead of having to send astronauts out on spacewalks, Dexter can go out on the end of Canadarm2 and grab onto something that's broken, like a computer box or a pump box, remove the bolts, just like you and I would at home. Take out that box, go get a new one, put it back in, do up the bolts, and we repair the space station. So we're actually doing robotics operations pretty much every single day of the year to keep the space station running. So that Canada is a very, very busy contributor for the International Space Station. And it's kind of one of those unsung heroes, but it's something that we should be very proud of. We are the first country in the world to develop space robotics. That was pretty ambitious. That was a pretty big goal that somebody set on the behalf of our country, and has now put us in this place where we are front and center in space exploration. So that's going on in low Earth orbit right now. We're testing elements of our Artemis architecture on the space station. It's a very important part of how we get back to the moon. But we have set our sights on getting to the surface of the moon, building a space station around the moon, and eventually heading to Mars. Mars is a little bit further away for us, so some of the people in the room, we're going to be looking for some Mars explorers. Any volunteers? Mars? Anyone? Thought so. All right, our future is bright. Few problems though, Mars explorers. Okay, I want to point this out. So I told you about the International Space Station. It's here at 400 kilometers above the surface. In the Artemis program, we're going to go to the moon. It's about 1,000 times further, close to 400,000 kilometers away. That's really hard. You want to go 1,000 times further than the space station? That is a big deal. It changes the whole problem set. And we're really wrestling with how we're going to do this sustainably and with a consistent presence around and on the moon. But for our Mars explorers in here, you have to go another 1,000 times further than the moon. And Mars is going to be hard, really hard. We're going to need really gritty explorers. It's going to take about 8 months to get there. The whole mission to go there, explore the surface, and come back is going to probably be about a 2.5-year trip. It's a big deal. So for us to go to the moon and back, it's going to take us 9 days. To go to Mars, 2.5 years. Imagine. So you got lots of work ahead of you. All right, really quickly, our mission, Artemis 2, here's what's going to happen. So we're going to blast off out of Florida, and we're going to do one quick lap around the planet. Take us about 1.5 hours, and we're going to have a really quick look at the capsule that we're riding in and make sure we think it's ready for a deeper space. And then we're going to do a burn, and we're going to go out and we're going to do this orbit of the Earth. This is a really big orbit. We're going to go all the way out to 60,000 kilometers. You remember the space station's at 400 kilometers. We're going to go out to 60,000 kilometers. That is beyond all of the satellites that we use on Earth. We're going a long way out. And that gives us a day to look at the spacecraft in detail. We're going to stress it on purpose. We're going to try and do some things that we hope won't break it, but we want to know if they will. We're going to do things like exercise so that we load up the system with our carbon dioxide, make sure it can support us for 8 days on the rest of the trip. We're going to stress the electrical system. And once we're convinced that the spacecraft is ready to take us to the moon, then we're going to do something that's really cool called the translunar injection. And then we're going to go all the way around the moon and back. And that'll take about 8 days to finish out that part of the mission. And it's called a free return trajectory. That means once we burn our engine here to go to the moon, if we do nothing else, we will hit the Earth on the way home. And that's good for us because it means we can test the capsule safely. So if we break something on its first trip with humans on it, we still get to come home as long as we can keep ourselves alive for those 8 days. We've been doing some cool stuff. This is our real capsule, so we got to go check it out in the summer. This is the actual one we'll fly in. They won't let us sit in it yet, but they'll let us look at it. And we got to peek inside. It's got a new car smell. It's very shiny. And it sent shivers up and down my spine to see the real spacecraft. This is not the real one. This is one of our mock-ups that we're training in, so we're allowed to get this one dirty. And these are sleeping bags that are set up here. And we've been trying to figure out where are we going to sleep in this tiny little place. So imagine our trip is going to be just testing this capsule. We can't land on the moon. We don't have a lunar lander. We can't go to the Gateway space station. It doesn't exist yet. We're just going to live in our capsule for those 9 days. It's going to be pretty tight. It's kind of like going car camping in a van, but you never get out. And so we're just going to be stuck inside this little capsule. So it'll be cozy. Here's a picture of Jenny and I. Remember I introduced you to Jenny, one of our other Canadian astronauts. We're with Dr. Gordon Osinski from Western University. And we were recently in a really cool place in Canada, Labrador, a sacred Innu site in northwestern Labrador. And this is really cool for training astronauts. We're very lucky that the Innu have invited us to train there. And in this place is a rock type called anorthosite. And anorthosite is kind of like granite. So it's like Canadian Shield material. But the thing about anorthosite, it is very rare on Earth today. Used to be lots of it, but the Earth is always recycling itself with volcanoes and plate tectonics and all those things. But in the Canadian Shield, some of that really, really old rock is preserved. And there's anorthosite in this place. And this anorthosite was hit by a meteor millions of years ago. And so we can go there and see what anorthosite looks like. Why? Because the moon is made of anorthosite. And so we get to see what the moon looks like when it's been impacted. Basically, the moon is all impacts. And so this is a really cool place for future surface geologists on the moon to learn, to see what they're going to see on the moon, and to look for the right samples to bring back. So I'm not going to the moon, but the Artemis II crew and some of our other astronauts are already starting to do the training to think about how are we going to get the rest of the Corps ready to go do these really complex jobs on the lunar surface. So this was a really special trip for us. We also got to spend a lot of time with the Innu community, share stories, and understand why this place is very sacred to them. I found this fascinating. So they have been treating this crater as a sacred site for thousands of years. And I love it when like spirituality and science meet. I think that's such a cool synergy. I think it's just really neat that they recognized thousands of years ago this is a very special place on planet Earth, a very powerful place on planet Earth. And science has pointed to us that this is a very special place and a very powerful place on planet Earth. And now most likely every astronaut that goes to the moon will go to Labrador in this sacred Innu site and learn about Mother Earth and learn about their respect and how they view this special place. I think that's a really neat story. We recently did a test run of launch day. So there's no rocket here. This is on the launch pad, the real launch pad, and this is how you walk out to the capsule and get into it. This little gangway, if you will. And you can see the Florida coast there. And so what we did is the whole team exercised a launch, but no rocket. So we slept there in our quarantine facility. We got up, we ate, we got our briefings, we got in our suits, we pretended to say goodbye to some people that were pretending to be our family. And then we got in our little transport vehicles and we rode out to the launch pad and we figured out where we can walk and where we can't walk, where it'll be safe. We went up, we put on our helmets and our gloves, and then we couldn't get in the rocket because it wasn't there. And then we pretended that we scrubbed for some reason, and we undid all that stuff, went back and undressed and all of that. So this is how, in the space program, we get ready for really challenging things as we practice, practice, practice. So when you're in school and you're learning something hard and you don't know how to do it, what do? That's right. This is how we do it in space. We're no smarter than you. We have to practice or we're not going to get it right on the launch day. So this is the rocket we're going to ride on. And this one, well, it's not the one we're going to ride on. This was Artemis 1. So Artemis 1 was a test of this rocket. It had no humans on it. So the first time you fly a rocket, you prefer to not have humans on it if you can. And we're lucky we have enough automation today that we can fly our rocket without humans to test it out. And I was lucky enough to go watch the launch, but if you haven't seen it yet, here it is. So I'm going to be on that thing. It's pretty impressive. When you witness it in person, it makes an impression on you. It is a loud, rumbly rocket. It looks cool. It looks the part. It jumps off the launch pad, and it really gets going. So it's a very cool ride. I'm very excited to see what that really feels like. But I think it's going to make an impression. This is what it looks like when we get to space. So this is the capsule on the top of the rocket. This is the Orion capsule. And then below the capsule is what we call the European Service Module. So European Space Agency contributed this part of the capsule. This part was made by Lockheed. The rocket was primarily made by Boeing. And this is the Artemis 1. This is a real picture from Artemis 1. So this is the capsule in space. This is a real photo that we took on Artemis 1. So on that mission, it went out, it orbited the moon, it spent a few weeks in deep space so we could test the capsule. There's a big difference though. We're kind of going as fast as we can. So as soon as we can figure something out that we want to test, we go and we test it. So we did not have everything done for Artemis 1 that we need to put a crew on it. Like a crew could not have survived in this vehicle, not possible. No life support, all that stuff was missing. None of the manual controls, displays, how we interact with the vehicle, all the manual backups, none of that stuff was done. And so that's why there's this, you kind of take steps in space exploration, and Artemis 2 is the next step of us testing this capsule. Isn't that a cool picture though? So the engineers did something really smart. So we have these big solar arrays on the capsule. You can see the end of one there, or the beginning of one there. There's 4 of them. And on the end of the solar arrays, they put cameras. So the solar arrays have become like selfie sticks. And solar arrays, like they have to turn to track the sun, and we have to change the angle on them for different aspects of the mission, like when we're accelerating and things like that for plume from the engines. And so because of all this motion on these solar arrays that's possible, we truly can just use them like a selfie stick. And we turn them around, and we took some really cool pictures during Artemis 1. There's lots more online if you're interested. So I keep talking about Artemis. Well, Artemis program is very ambitious, very bold, and part of it is maintaining a sustained presence in the lunar system, around the moon in orbit and on the surface. And this is the Lunar Gateway. And this is primarily why a Canadian is flying on Artemis 2, is because we decided that we would contribute Canadarm3 for the Gateway. So we would help build and maintain the Gateway with a new version of Canadarm that doesn't work in low Earth orbit, it works in deep space with the latency or the delay in communications between Earth and the moon. This is a huge challenge that we've undertaken to design deep space robotics. And again, our country taking some bold steps forward, taking some risks, and doing some cool stuff for humanity. We've also committed, yeah. I'm glad you clapped, because this is one of the things I'm always trying to sort of reflect back to Canada, is that we sell ourselves a little short sometimes, but when I travel across this country, I see the genius everywhere I go. And space isn't, the end-all be-all of everything, but the big goals we set in space, it is unleashing that genius. It's bringing these people together collectively to create some crazy, amazing solutions. Another area that we have some incredible expertise is lunar rovers. I visited Canadensis yesterday, a company in Bolton in Stratford, Ontario. They're building a lunar rover for us. We just committed this year to build another larger rover to help with our lunar exploration, so some really cool technologies to come. This is an area that there's going to be a lot of work in the future for people that are interested in this. I wanted to highlight another couple of priority areas for the Canadian Space Agency for those of you that are big thinkers and you want to kind of direct your effort in the future where we're going to need some help. One of them is food security. So as you start to think about going to the moon and to Mars, the problems that we're looking at and that we're facing are very similar to the problems we're starting to face on this planet with respect to us eclipsing 8 billion people on this planet, just clean drinking water, food security, remote health care, all these types of things start to become a big problem for the space program. So food, if we can't grow food in the Canadian Arctic, there's no way we can grow it on the moon. So we have lots of communities living in harsh areas in Canada, harsh climates, And we're trying to leverage that expertise with leading edge science and learn how to grow food on Earth in the Arctic, and then take that expertise with our international partnership to the moon and eventually Mars. And this is a really clever way for Canada, for leaders in Canada, to sort of like do two things at once. We can innovate, solve the problems here that we need to solve anyway, and we can barter them with the international partnership to have more science in deep space, to send more Canadians into deep space, and to be part of that lunar economy that is growing. So this is one area that we need to work on, food. The other is remote healthcare. As you know, in Canada, we have a public healthcare system. We're spending a lot of government dollars on healthcare. And technology, we did a study on this recently called Health Beyond. And what that study said to us was, there's this space, if you will, this healthcare space is ripe to have some coordinated effort on including or inspiring new innovation to do healthcare and remote healthcare differently. And so this is an area where Canadian Space Agency doesn't have that expertise, but the expertise is all across our country. And we want to leverage and enable that expertise to create the solutions to deliver healthcare in deep space. We want to prove it out here on Earth, help ourselves, and take it to space with the international community. So this is an area that I am particularly personally very excited about. And you notice in this picture, of course, taking care of our planet. As we venture out on Artemis 2, every chance we get, we're going to be staring back at planet Earth. We're going to see the marble of Earth hanging in the vacuum of space. Our eyes are going to be glued to it. And we're all very worried about things like climate change and the pressure we're putting on Mother Earth today. And so this is another priority area for the agency, is everything we do, we filter against these priorities and we think, what can space do to help us with respect to climate change and taking care of this planet? And one of those things is science and information. One of the big issues we have is getting us all on the same page with a consistent and common understanding of the problem. All of us agreeing on whether things are real or not real, having real data, real science. Well, space, if you want to take the heartbeat of our planet, the best place to do that from is space. You put a satellite in space, you can image the whole planet with the same sensor, and you can get this incredible suite of data. And we already have a lot of this data. I was really happy to see we just made another investment in continuing our RadarSat satellite constellation so we can continue to collect data. For anyone who's tried to solve a problem, the length of your data set and the consistency of your data set matters a lot. So if you're trying to solve something like climate change, if you only have 1 year of data, it's useful. But if you have 30 years of data from the same types of sensors, it's extremely useful and allows you to develop models and to try and understand. And so our continued commitment to another niche technology in Canada, another area where we excel, RadarSat technology, is going to continue. Why is RadarSat so important? RadarSat can see through clouds, see through rain, and you can always map the Earth. No matter rain or shine, day or night, you can map the Earth and collect data. So this is a very cool technology that we have and we will continue. I also want to point out that these, for our young thinkers and people who want to solve problems and make a contribution to make our world a better place, space data is an untapped resource. So we're already using lots of space data, but I want you to realize there's more out there, and it just exists. And if you have creative ways to use that data, you could help us solve problems with stuff we've already bought and paid for. So think about that. These are some ways that you could get involved if you want to be help us with some citizen science. Space Brain Hack just launched. This is a great way for youth to get involved in solving real problems for us. And it's a great outlet for your ideas. And then we have on the Canadian Space Agency website, we have other resources for all of you who are interested in being part of the solution. You can follow us on our social media accounts as well, and we try to put information on this out there. So back to deep space exploration. What do you see here? This is a real video from Artemis 1 coming around the backside of the moon, and this is an Earthrise. And I gotta tell you, I just feel so privileged as a human that I'm going to experience this. As we zip around the far side of the moon, as we come back around, we're going to see this extraordinary view, our planet. This is kind of where I wanted to end on today. I wanted to think about the challenges that we face. A young girl asked me this week in another presentation, she's in elementary school, she just asked, do you think we can really have a bright and positive future on this planet? And that really hit me, that one of our young Canadians are thinking about this, and I know you are. It's concerning for all of us. We have a lot of challenges when it comes to climate, working together, lifting one another up instead of tearing one another apart on the planet. This is a big deal, and it looks a little bit overwhelming. Artemis 2 is not going to solve all this, but it is an example of how if we just work together, we can do some extraordinary things. And I just want you to know that no matter, anytime you set big goals and you try to solve a big problem, you will have challenges like this. It's the only thing that life consistently gives you is problems. I don't know why, it just is. We seem to be here to learn how to solve problems. So in your life, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have setbacks. In the space program, we have challenges, we have setbacks. On this planet, we have challenges, we have setbacks. And what matters is our mindset. It's our dedication to creating together to solve them. And so here's just one fun space example of that. If we want to land on the moon, we need a lunar lander. And so this is one solution that we're working on. This is the SpaceX solution. It's very grandiose. It's very bold. It's very challenging. It's a huge lunar lander. Did anyone notice the astronaut? This is not your Apollo lunar lander. This thing is legit. And so this is a big challenge to put something like this on the moon. So this is just a drawing. It's not real. This one's real. This is a real model of this lander. There's a person right there underneath. And the way SpaceX approaches it is they're like, okay, we're going to give it our best shot, and we're going to see what goes wrong, and then we're going to try and fix it. And we'll see what goes wrong, and we'll try and fix it. And so if you haven't seen this before, there's nobody on these rockets. Sometimes I forget to tell you that up front. Nobody gets hurt in the following video, okay? But the important thing to take away from this is a good parallel for our lives. We are going to face failure. It's what we do with that failure that matters. So let's play this video. So you'll see multiple attempts to figure out how to land this lunar lander back on Earth. Nope. So, in your life, you have to know what you want. You have to know what your goals and your objectives are. You aren't going to accomplish them alone, so you're going to have the courage to tell other people. And then, I can guarantee you this, you will have setbacks, you will have failures, you will be discouraged, and you will see that those people that you shared with, they will pick you up, they will equip you to take on those challenges. So thank you. Let's take some questions.
So at this time, we're inviting you to ask your own questions. Also, the past 2 weeks, we received questions from many students around the Greater Toronto area, so I may interject one or two of those questions through our question period. We have our two microphone runners here. We have Jamie and Rowan, and they're going to be running down the center aisles or the side aisle, so they'll get to choose and we'll alternate back and forth. So let's start with our first question. You ready?
Hello. So obviously it's been a long time since Apollo, and technology has moved on. So my question is, how does navigation in deep space compare now with like GPS and whatnot to like what the Apollo did back in the day?
Yeah, it's a good and it's a fair question, but there's a big problem with it. Hasn't changed at all, is the reality. Because the big problem is geostationary satellites are, I don't remember the exact altitude, but they're somewhere around that 20,000 kilometer mark. So very quickly, we are going to be past geostationary satellites. So we can use them when we first get to orbit on that first lap around, and then after that, they're of no use to us anymore. And so we have to do it the old-fashioned way, the way that indigenous explorers have done it for thousands of years. We're going to use the stars. Yeah.
Thank you, Drew. Have a next question over here.
What's the moon made out of?
What's the moon made out of? It's not cheese. We know that now. But the only reason we know that is because we went there and we explored. And we brought back samples from a very small region of the moon. And we surmise that the rest of the moon is very similar and made of all the same types, but there's still some questions about what we'll find on the moon. But mostly, I talked about a rock type called anorthosite. And so that is primarily what the moon is made of. And then you had all this volcanic activity on the moon a long, long time ago. And now you have lava all over it. So when you see those like gray patches, that's the lava primarily. And when you see the light patches, that's the anorthosite on a kind of a big picture scale. But what is the moon really made of? What do we think the moon is really made of? We think it is made of the Earth. And that is because our leading theory is that early on in the solar system development, so we're talking over 4 billion years ago, Earth was going along and it was doing its thing, and it was probably still very hot from its formation, and something big came along and hit the Earth, like big like Mars, like another big chunk of rock flying through the solar system, and it hit Earth, and it stripped off some of the Earth's crust, and it put it in this orbit around Earth, and then all that stuff eventually got together over, say, I think 100 million years. Took a while. It all got together and formed the moon. And when the moon would have been formed, it would have been all molten. It would have been all like liquid rock, like magma, initially when it formed, and completely melted. And the moon is different from the Earth because whatever hit the Earth stripped off the crust, but didn't hit the core. And so the moon doesn't have like our core, like the material that's in our core. It doesn't have a magnetic field anymore like the Earth does. So when you go to the moon, you don't have like all that protection that the Earth provides with an atmosphere and a magnetic field, which is sort of like a shield on Star Trek. That's what we have around the Earth. That's why we can live here. The moon is not a great place to live for a long time because there's a lot of radiation there.
Go over to Jamie. Yeah.
So do you really think there's life on Earth? The moon?
No, we don't think there's any life on the moon. We didn't see anything that would give us the idea that it could survive there on the moon. But there are some like interesting experiments that could happen in the future. What if we went back to the places where the Apollo astronauts landed and left their waste behind? So just like we go to the bathroom here in space, the Apollo astronauts had to go to the bathroom on the moon. And so they left like bacteria and things on the moon in their feces. And so I've heard some ideas of like, what happened to that life? Did it all die off? Did any of it survive? Did any of it evolve? It's a really good question. And someday, somebody's going to go back to an Apollo site and figure that out. But we don't believe life has ever existed on the moon, other than maybe the stuff we left there.
Rowan, over here.
My son has some ideas for your exercise that you should do. He wants you to do push-ups and handstands. But what are you thinking?
Well, so great idea. So I think I would feel really great about push-ups and handstands in space, because I can't do a handstand for you today in gravity, but I'm pretty sure I could pull one off in space for you. For us in our capsule, we're going to be floating in microgravity, right? Because we're not going to land on the moon. But if you land on the moon, you will have a little bit of gravity, and maybe even this guy could do a handstand in lunar gravity. I don't know. But maybe you'll try it someday. I can tell you that Mission Control will be really mad at me if I try to do a handstand in a spacesuit, though. They would not think that's funny.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for your speech. That was really wonderful. My name is Eliza, and I'm an aspiring astronaut, currently working on Canadarm3, actually. And I wanted to ask, as an aspiring astronaut, what are your recommendations to move forward as a junior engineer?
Great. So you're already applying the only thing I wanted you to really remember, which was to have goals and to share them. And you just shared them with everybody. So that was really brave, and I appreciate that. My advice is, I'll give you the same advice Chris gave me when I was in university, and I asked Chris Hadfield, and I asked him a question at a talk he gave, because I was trying to figure out, like, what should I study? I wanted to make sure I studied the right thing, and it's just really simple advice. He said, you want to study what you're passionate about. What are you really interested in? What do you love to do? That's 100% what you need to study. You don't study what I studied, you study what you're passionate about. It's such great advice. In each one of us are special gifts and interests. And you just sort of got to sit back and feel those gifts and interests. You just got to follow them. You got to follow your intuitions. And that will lead you on a path that's very interesting and meaningful for you no matter what happens in your life. And then some other things you can do, though, if you're pursuing a goal, you want to actively do some things. One thing that is important for astronauts is what I would call operational experience. So you have to have the academic pillar, but you have to be able to tell some stories when you get to an astronaut selection process about when you were challenged, when you had tough decisions to make, when it wasn't obvious what the right decision to make was and you were still able to make one, or you got help to make one. You want to have some stories about how you reacted to some high pressure situations, because if you're going to go in the tin can with us, and we want to know that if we have an emergency, like there's a fire or depressurization, that you're going to be actively fighting to survive with us. Astronauts can't survive everything. Some things can get us. But there's one thing that we always do. We either survive or we die trying. And that is sort of our mantra. So we will never be curled in the corner complaining about it. We will be fighting till the very last second, trying to solve a problem with our friends in Mission Control. So that's operational experience. You can get that. I got a lot of it flying with the Air Cadets and with the military, but you could get it backcountry backpacking. That's a pretty simple way to do it. You could do it climbing mountains, volunteering in the fire department, or in medicine. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to do it. Just follow your intuition on how to get that. So those are two things, and the third thing is we just want nice people. We don't want to be trapped in tin cans with jerks. We want people. We want people who are empathic, they care about others, they think about the team, they want everyone to succeed, they want to lift others up. We're looking for those people.
Jeremy, we have one question. Yes, sir. From our students from a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions was, if you could take someone up to the moon with you, who would it be? And this is from a grade 6 student from Miss LeBlanc and Miss Wagner's class from Hyde Park Public School.
I think the most important people to send to space today are the people who are confused about how we live on this planet, who think that we're really divided and that we can't work together. And I think whoever that is, leaders of influence who just seem to have it wrong right now, who are self-centered. Thank you. Self-centered. Think it's a win, or that life is a win-lose scenario. Those are the types of people that I'd love to bring along, because I think it would just cut right through them and they'd be like, we can do better.
Thank you. Rowan?
Yes. My name is Jeremy. My goal is to become an air cadet and be a pilot. And my question is, are you scared about this mission?
Great name, Jeremy. I love it. There doesn't seem to be a lot of Jeremys in the world, so we got to stick together. I love your goals. It's really great. Thanks for sharing those. Am I scared? So it's a hard question to answer. So as I stand before you today, I'm not scared at all. I don't live in fear of that. but you have to be very aware of the risks. And we talk about this, almost every day that we're training. When we're learning a system, what we're doing is filtering, can this kill us? And if it breaks, is there a way to work around this? What are our backup systems? Do we need procedures for this? And so we are always thinking about that. And that is why we're not scared, is because we are actively working on solving it. The way to think about fear is I get scared and I have fear. But when I feel fear, I just use it as an indicator, as something I need to work on. But to stay in that fear is very unhealthy. So you're going to face fear. Sometimes you're going to be oh gosh, I got a test tomorrow, I'm really scared. And then you should be okay, so I care about this, and this is important. Thank you, fear. That's enough. And now we're going to do something productive with our energy, and we're going to start studying so that we can get ready for that test tomorrow. And that's kind of how it works for us. I think the day before launch will be one of those days where I'm a little bit scared. And I'm saying goodbye to my family for the last time, that last hug. That's going to be hard, I think. I'll be scared. But then when it's launch day, I know that I will just set that fear aside and I'll focus on my job.
Amazing. Then Jamie?
So I have a question. I'm seeing I know this is using solar panels as opposed to, say, Apollo, which used fuel cells. And I know Apollo 13 was in such a big pickle because they were out of water as well, because no fuel cells. So knowing that solar panels don't produce water, I guess what's the rationale of going this route, and as well as any kind of challenges with water production on board?
Yeah. I don't know. I have to make up the answer because I don't know why wasn't involved in the design decision to use solar instead of fuel cells. I'm sure it was considered. Fuel cells are they are a viable way to produce power in space, but solar technology has just come so far since Apollo, and so the solar panels that you see, they're about 10. It's about a 10 kilowatt system. You could put that system on your house. I wouldn't recommend this one, it's more expensive, but there are other options out there. So it can meet all our needs now, solar, and it's very reliable. On Artemis 1, we realized that we over-designed a little bit. We actually have a lot more power than we need. We could have a whole solar array wing fall off, and we'd still be okay. So there's a lot of redundancy in this system. So I think it just makes sense. But then you have to bring water. And so we just have somebody calculated the water, how much water they think we should drink over 9 days, and that's how much water we're bringing. Don't waste any.
Excellent. Rowan?
My name's April, and one question I have is on the moon, you can just inject antifreeze from the animals who live in the Arctic into the plants, so you could grow them on the moon.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we're going to need to test it, though. You know what I mean? We're going to need to check out that idea. So do you do science projects in school?
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. So there's science fairs that you could get involved in for youth, and you could start trying to figure this out and do some of that testing. So if you've got a great idea, then you want to go another step and try and maybe find some other people who think it's a good idea that could help you go a few more steps. So, we're doing something similar. We have a greenhouse in Johaven, which is an Arctic community in Canada. And it's a collaboration between the community there, Canadian Space Agency, and Natural Resources Canada. And so we kind of did a bit of what you're saying, not exactly, but what we did is we said to the community is, would you help us figure this out? We would be interested to provide some greenhouse infrastructure if you would be willing to run it, put some plants in it that you think would do well in this greenhouse environment and that your community would appreciate. And so they are teaching us how to grow food in the Arctic.
Jamie?
My question is, what was astronaut training like?
What was astronaut training like? Well, that's a long story, my friend. And we've done a lot of stuff. I've been an astronaut for 14 years and a lot of different things. So I can give you a few highlights. I really like the spacewalk training we do in Houston in the real big spacesuits, the big white spacesuits. We do it in a pool. I like it because it's really hard. It's really challenging. It's one of those things where you can get in on it any given day and like, okay, I can still learn to do this better if I could get more practice. So I really like that. I lived on the ocean floor in a habitat. Let's sort of like imagine like an RV-sized habitat on the ocean floor. It's kind of like a space station for us. I lived down there for 7 days. Extraordinary experience, like one of the best life experiences, just to see the marine life and how it behaves. You know, when you scuba dive, you kind of visit a place, but when I lived down there, I saw the sea life completely different. I saw them all day, every day, and that habitat has become a natural reef over all these years. And so there's a lot of cool fish hanging out of this place. This is their home, and you're sort of living with a bunch of fish and other marine life in their home, and you start to realize, wow, these fish are just like us. They have habits. Like every day they get up, they go to the same places. And like there was this school of yellowfish. Every day at 11 a.m., you could set your watch by it. They would go to a window, and they would just sit there and look at us in the window, just float around. It's like 11 o'clock, they go to see what the humans do. It's like they're doing a little science experiment. Let's go at 11 o'clock, see what they're doing today. What are they having for lunch? You could set your watch by it, and there were all these things happening, and it's like every single day, same thing. I was like, wow, it's crazy. Just like we get up, brush our teeth, they get up, they go over there, do whatever they do. I don't know what they're thinking about, but they do the same thing. I thought that was a really cool observation. You see that the ocean's very much like up here with the atmosphere where the weather changes every day. So I kind of just think of the ocean as kind of consistent. But it's not. There's currents, they change. So it's like the wind is different every day. Some days it's windy down there, and some days it's not. Some days it's so windy, like when you're out doing a spacewalk, you are literally like doing this across the ocean floor, pushing against the current. Some days the visibility is good, some days it's not. It's just, I thought that was really cool. So those are a couple highlights.
Thank you. Rowan?
My name is Kinley, and I was wondering, how long have you been training for this mission so far?
So specifically for this mission, we got assigned in April. And we really started training in June, because the beginning we just were doing a lot of outreach initially. And so since June, but a lot of people have been working on this Artemis architecture for years. And so those are the people that are training us, and they're just kind of getting us up to speed. I've already done a lot of training, and so we're leveraging that training experience to help us get ready. I didn't mention, but my 3 crewmates, the 3 Americans on this flight, have all been to space before. So they're all very experienced. Reed was the one who was sitting in the front in that photo. He did 6 months on space station. Victor, who's at the back, he did 6 months on space station. And Christina, she did almost a year on the space station, all in one shot. So she has a lot of experience. And so those 3 are helping me a lot to get ready for my first trip to space. I'm the rookie.
We have a question. I want to ask you another student questions from the school.
Yeah.
Can you take your own items with you to space? And if you can, what would you bring?
So we can take some items, some personal choice items to space. We really don't know how much. That's the question. So we have it well established for an International Space Station mission. You can sort of take, it's like a box about this big, and you can put stuff in that, and those are things you can take. You can represent schools that you went to, youth programs you're involved in, and other things that are meaningful for yourself and the country. For us, we really don't know yet. It is so hard to go to the moon. I gotta tell you, it's a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be, and we are so mass limited and space limited in that capsule. In the future, we'll have more room, but right now we're very limited on this first mission. And so it really depends on how much space they give us, but it's going to be not very much. But I will take, for sure, a high priority for me will be my wife and my 3 kids, something for them, because they're a big part of this mission, and I'll definitely be taking them with me. And then, of course, trying to figure out, of all the options, how to take Canada as part of that as well. I need to figure that out. If you got ideas, I'll take them, send them in.
We're going to head to Jamie.
Why would you want to do the risk?
Yeah. Why would you want to take these risks? I don't know. I think, astronauts have some things in common. I think one of them is maybe we're just a little bit crazy, like 1 brick short of a load, maybe. I'm not really sure. Because I talked to some people, they're like, there's no way I would get on that rocket. And I'm like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. When you say it that way, I can't really tell you why, but I can tell you that if you look back in our history, there have always been people that just wanted to go explore. And I think if you look back at some of our historical explorers, they took way more risks than we're going to take to explore our Earth, to travel. You think about indigenous explorers, the risks that they took, the unknowns they faced with the technology that they had at the time is extraordinary to think about how those original indigenous explorers managed to move throughout basically the entire planet without technology. Just with human power and ingenuity, I think it's extraordinary to think about those explorers. So I can't tell you why, but some people are just wired wrong and they just want to explore.
We'll go to Rowan.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and how do I become an astronaut?
So I noticed you already have a helmet. That's a good start. So there's 3 things, okay? So this will be a bit of a recap. So you heard some of this before. There's 3 things you need to do. 1, academics. You need to do your best in school. Notice I didn't say you need to be the best in school. I said you need to do your best in school. That's good enough. You just need to do your best, which means you put in the best effort that you can. You need to challenge yourself. So you can't just stay home and play video games. Video games are fine, but you can't get to space and just video games alone. So you're going to need to get outside your home. You're going to need to challenge yourself. You're going to need to join some organizations. You're going to need to learn to work as a team. You might want to play sports. You might want to help your school. So you're going to need to challenge yourself. Things that you're looking for, things that you're like, that seems like that would be really cool, but I'm just a little bit scared to do it. Bingo, that's it. The ones that just scare you a little bit, you want to do those things. And then you need to take care of other people. You need to be a good team player. You need to be asking people, what can I do to help you out? Because that's going to make people help you out, and that's going to help you on your journey.
Jamie?
Hi, my name is Dia, and so you said that you're gonna try to find out how to plant and produce food on the moon. Have you found any evidence yet or not?
Do you mean have we found evidence on the moon already?
Like how to plant food and produce it?
Well, we have ideas. So just like we can put humans on the moon, we put them inside a spaceship that has the same atmosphere that we can breathe. And so if you want to grow, like right now we're growing food on the International Space Station. And the way we grow food there is they're in a spacecraft, so they have air, pressure, and we use lights with the right frequencies, that the energy, they don't get sunlight where they are in the space station, so we give them artificial light to help them grow. And we don't have gravity there, so we have to do some things. So we can't plant them in soil because the soil would just float around, so we have to do sort of like hydroponic, and we're trying different technologies to see how best to grow plants. The moon, again, will be different. So we're going to eventually try growing some plants on the moon and see how we do. So we know we could grow plants on the moon. That's not really the question. We know it could be done, but can we do it in a way that is sustainable, with enough, could we have enough energy resources? Could astronauts actually grow enough to count on it and survive? We're not too worried about the moon, but we're really worried about Mars. So like when you leave Earth to go to Mars, you either have to bring a lot of food, a lot of mass, it's crazy, or you have to be able to depend on growing food, and that's scary. And we are not at the point where we would at all believe that we could harvest consistently a crop to keep astronauts alive. And so we're going to need experience. And that's why growing food in the Arctic would be so powerful. It is different than the moon, but it is a similar challenge. And if we could get to the point where we consistently could count on growing crops and sustain a community with greenhouses in the Arctic, that would be a huge information win for us.
We have time for 2 more questions, so Rowan.
My name is Charlie, and my question is a Canadian astronaut going to get a seat on Artemis 3?
Okay, yeah, so future Artemis mission opportunities. So there will not be a Canadian on Artemis 3 or 4. I don't know how long it'll take. So we have this mission. We have another deep space mission to be negotiated. Could end up anywhere, really. But that would not be to the surface of the moon. That would be into deep space. So that was for our contribution for Canadarm3. But I told you we're making other contributions. We're looking at other areas where we can invest in our country anyway, and the partnership needs it. And then we could basically do two things at once. So spend money on innovation that matters for the country, regardless of whether it goes to space or not, and then give it to the international partnership in exchange for a Canadian walking on the moon in the future. And so this is a very, very viable plan, but with all these types of plans, not easy. There'll be challenges, and we'll have to dig in to do it. But I'm very confident in the genius I see across the country, the examples I see, the people who are eager, who are motivated to solve these problems anyway. I'm very, very confident that we can continue to grow as a spacefaring nation to the point where you will see numerous Canadians someday walk on the moon.
We have one more question.
Thank you. My name's Ethan, and my goal is to get into Space Cadets. And my question is, what do you need to do to get into the Space Cadet? The Air Force Cadets.
Oh, so do you mean Air Cadets or Air Force?
Yeah, Air Cadets.
Oh, well, do you live in Toronto?
No, I live in Mississauga.
Mississauga, close enough. So you're very fortunate if you live in larger communities. Not everywhere in Canada is this possible, but where you live, this is very possible. This is a youth organization that is very accessible to you. It's not, unfortunately, accessible to all Canadians, but it is in Mississauga. And you just go on the Royal Canadian Air Cadets website and you find a squadron that's near you. And when you're 12 years old, you just go and you tell them you would like to be an Air Cadet. Can you do that?
Yes.
All right, so small recap.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Small recap. Remember, most important things I shared today, you need to set
goals.
And you need to share them with others. That's how you will achieve amazing things. And we need to continue to work on this planet. We need to use the examples of a mission like Artemis to remind people that we can do amazing things if we just create together versus destroy. Thank you for your time today, everyone. It's lovely to talk to you. I'm looking for the Sitlingtons. No? Yes? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. Are you the Sitlingtons? You are? Hi, Sarah.
At this time, we'd like to say thank you all of you. I'd like to invite Janice Field to say some closing remarks.
So thank you, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, for joining us today. I think you agreed he delivered two important messages about making goals and sharing them with others. So what a wonderful time we had with you today. Thank you so much for sharing the journey on behalf of the audience and the Ontario Science Centre. I think we'll all make a promise for taking the time today. We'll go leave this place and take one step to make the planet better, and we'll be all following your journey together and be inspired by the message you delivered today and as you go through our Artemis era together. So thank you very much to everyone for being here, and thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much.